So the first question I like to ask everybody now, after Don's reading last month, is, what's the square root of 7? I'm just kidding.
No, but I had to get stoned to get through Albany.
Shit, no, I should have wrote my notes from last time because I had it written down. I had it written down.
Well, Don said, ask me anything, just don't ask me any math.
That makes sense.
Yes, don't ask me any math.
I like that.
So one of the first questions I ask everybody is, why did you start writing poetry?
Honestly, because I was way too lazy to become a musician. I took piano lessons. I took piano lessons. I took guitar lessons. I still have drum machines at the house. I have a synthesizer at the house. I can noodle all I want. In the 90s, I was part of a duo called New Nervous Voice, and it was all synthesizers and guitars and drum machines, and it was just too many wires. I said, you know what, I can go just as far without those wires, just by carrying a notebook, and that's what I did.
Who was it, the Nervous Boys?
New Nervous Voice was me, and then my partner was Steve Worthy.
All right. So, Mary wanted to talk about this. As we were just mentioning.
As you just shut me up.
I didn't shut you up. I just said,
save it for the camera.
Don't steal my thunder.
You threatened to slap him. You threatened to slap him somewhere.
Ooh,
Right.
he's so
But
hot now.
I came from a duo of people, performers. I started, I write and I don't play instruments because I'm not that talented. But I had a talented partner who's no longer with us. He's not dead, but he's dead to me. Anyway,
He took the last Pop-Tart.
so when we talk about Gary Murrow, our good friend, Nick, you weren't there. You don't know the magic.
Yeah, shut up.
But when we talk about our good friend Gary Murrow, your wife is actually the person that introduced the world to Gary Murrow. When we did a show in Woodstock, was it Kingston or Woodstock? A couple
I
years ago.
think it was Block and Roll because we were at a round table. We got
No.
sushi.
We ate. Like that was the supper before the reading.
Oh, okay.
So I think it may have been one of Becky's readings at
The bookstore.
At the bookstore.
Oh,
But we
correct.
got together and we
Correct.
had supper at it was a sushi spot.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
And-
that was nearby. Yeah, I remember
Okay,
that.
so we
I
had
remember
supper
that.
there.
Yeah, okay.
And then me and Keith were sitting next to each other, and you were introducing everybody to your wife, and you and your wife were like, oh, that's Tom and Keith, and she's like, oh, Gary Murrow.
She said,
She thought that.
who are you again? She goes, who are you again? Gary? And we just started laughing because it sounded like a child molester's name.
Right. So now Murrow was our name, and Gary Murrow took off from there.
And he's like the third most popular poet.
In 2013,
Ever.
the
Ever.
Metroland voted
Best poet.
best local poet, and now he's going to be a pushcart nominee.
He'll have to send you a new poem so you can have it out this year. So for the next year you can.
We'll get a hold of him.
No.
We know some people. Who
You know where he lives.
Yes. We know how to get a hold of Gary.
Third party bad check.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to so now I met you. You were one of the performers at the 2003 Albany Workfest.
Wasn't that Psycho Clusterfuck?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And you were part of the Voices of the Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started writing because you didn't want to be a musician because you were lazy. What got you on stage? What got you part of this scene of now promoting and hosting and being part of all of this? And getting on stage at the legendary Valentine's, as part of Psycho Clusterfuck.
I still have that. Yes, I still have that necklace.
We all do.
Oh yeah.
it was therapy, because what happened in the early 90s was we had just gotten married, and Emily was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And I needed some kind of therapy, some kind of outlet when we weren't taking care of things. And I started doing readings. I started doing them at the Howland Center in Beacon. 3 people would come, 9 people would come, 2 people would come, but I didn't care. It was just, okay, let's just keep doing this and doing this and doing this. And then I took Voices of the Valley out from Howland, brought it up to Kingston, and we were doing great. I mean, we were just, people were 6 inches of snow, and there'd be 20, 30, 40 people at once.
Nice.
So then Jim asked me to come back to CAPS in 2003, and that's how that went.
Okay. So then you went back to the Howland Center. Now, you were there for a number of years.
I was doing poetry readings there from 94 to 96, and then 97, and then Jim started CAPS in 99.
So what moved you out of there? You were there up until last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what got you? Like, what happened?
The true story?
Yes!
Yeah, this
My
year.
friends.
It's a true story, Glenn. We're going to do it.
Do it.
The true story was that as soon
Don't
as
get
we...
us in trouble.
No,
I'm
I
not
won't.
gonna get in trouble.
As soon as
No
we
one listens to this
Oh,
podcast.
As soon as we became a 503 501c3 nonprofit, the folks at the Howland, even though Jim and I had been there a combined, I'm going to say 25 years, if not 30, they wanted to raise our nightly rent from $20 to, from $50 to $200.
What?
Oh!
And we were just like, no, you can't do that. You have to take some kind of respect for what we've done.
Right. The relationship that you built all these
And
years.
they just, okay, we'll do it for 125, but 6 months now it's 150, and 6 months now
Whoa!
it's 200.
Holy.
And we just walked out.
Yeah.
I walked out a little bit more vehemently than Jim did, because he's far more difficult. But we walked out, and we were fortunate enough to go right next door and take care of things. And things next door were great for a year and a half.
Yeah. That was a great spot. I was
Yeah.
featured there a couple months ago.
And it just didn't work out, just personalities, this is not the other thing. As you know, Beacon's going through a lot of stuff, so they may have wanted to use the building for something else, whatever. And I just accidentally walked into the new place in New Paltz. I asked the woman, would you want to do a reading? She was like, yeah, and that's where we are now in New Paltz.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you have that, you know, that business relation where they're like, yes, we absolutely would love to have
Marcy Bernstein welcomed us with open arms. She was just like,
Yay,
anything we
Marcy.
got to do, let's do it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if there's a drawback to New Paltz, it's that it's on the 2nd floor, so some of the older folks have a problem getting up the stairs. But you have a trooper like Fred Poole, you have a trooper like Don Lev, I know most of you guys here know. They make their way up the stairs. They really do.
That's awesome. And I just can't get over this place, Jackie Moran, and then now they have a new series there.
I don't want to go into that.
I know, I'm just saying, like, it's just, like, when I see these, like, as someone who updates a website with events, and like, all of a sudden getting a listing for, you know, oh, it's a similar type of show at the same place. Like, well, what the hell is going on here?
When we're off the record, I'll tell you that story.
I'll be here.
Is that okay, Glenn?
Anyone from our esteemed audience? We'll go with Dan Wilcox, because Nick has said enough.
So Mike, I'd like to quote a song which I think you'll recognize. It was 20 years ago today.
Sergeant Pepper.
Rolling Stones?
Yes.
Okay, so I went through my my file today, looked for the oldest picture I have of you, which would have been the first time I saw you read, and it was literally February 15th, 1997.
No.
Wow.
That's amazing.
The AI Air Studio in Kingston. In the background of the picture, you can see Cheryl sitting there, and I think it's Bob Wright sitting off to the
Probably
side.
Bob, yeah.
Somebody else. But so it's 20 years since I've known you.
Wow.
Okay? 'Cause-
It's been a great friendship, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I'm just, my question really has to do is about the arc of those 20 years, and if there's some way you could comment upon changes, things of venues, whatever. 20 years ago.
Those 20 years?
Yeah.
Well, we've gone from a relatively free society to an almost police state in those 20 years. There's that. So
I'm talking about poetry, man.
So things like what you guys, I'm getting to that,
Okay.
things like what you guys do every day of the week is absolutely necessary because we need those open forums.
Okay.
We need that democratic forum. Things like what we do down there, because we're expanding the program out now too, they're needed now more than ever.
Yeah.
The changes, I don't know, I think we've all kept up with the changes. I think we've done a really nice job.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, places close, places open, we find a way to do it, we find a way, okay, look, we've learned how to do streaming, we've learned how to do podcasts. If anything's really changed, it's been the technology.
Yeah.
Because when we did it, we were doing it 20 years ago, it was just our little group, it was this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
Bring it to the world.
by plan, you know, if it's working right, it's all going out to the world.
Yeah. So in your world down in Hudson Valley, like,
No, our world's your world.
well, I'm just saying, in your geographic physical world, in the Hudson Valley, what's going on in that? What's changed? Has there been a growth? Is there a lot of activity down there with the poetry scene? Is there, have you seen it wax and wane? Like, what's been going on?
No, I think it's more active now than ever. There's always been something going on, at least, if not every night, every other night. But now I think you can honestly, if CAPS is on first Friday, you've got a reading on the second Friday, you've got Teresa's thing on the third Thursday, you've got this other new thing that started in Kingston every Thursday, you've got Michael doing his thing at Woodstock every Monday.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's always, and Woodstock, the Woodstock Poetry Guild is still there every second Saturday. So yeah, we're all out there. It's always happening.
That's awesome. Nick Pazantz, everybody. Nick Pazantz.
Okay. Now, Mike, some people will know or not know that we have a mutual friend. And first off, who was the cat that you worked with back in Garrison? This is back. Well, first off, my very close friend and former roommate and bandmate, probably one of the people I've worked with, worked with for close to 27, 25 years musically, Pat Irish. Grew up around Mike.
Right.
I did not know any of this until, I would say, the last 5, 6, 7 years. So who was that fella that you did the project with?
Unfortunately, well, his name was Mark Reisman.
Mark Reisman, that's right.
Unfortunately, he's deceased.
Right. Now, Mark Reisman, Pat used to tell you about this guy, Mike Trakovic and Mark Reisman, and we would play these songs, or words and things like that. And do you remember any of those titles? Because I'm trying to think of them as myself. And
No.
they were all stuff, but the basic bottom line is Pat was hugely influenced.
Which I really
By
find
that.
amazing. I really do, because I just didn't think it went that far.
I can remember in 1991 living with Pat in Poughkeepsie, playing in a band with him. And we'd just be noodling around the house and he'd speak of you guys. And long story short, I ended up playing these songs with Pat so much and getting to know the lyrics. I was like, I got to know you guys.
So you were playing Mike's songs?
My stuff.
Well, there were lyrics and stuff that Pat would take
Well, you gotta let me hear
that he took from this
You live
the
right
words.
No, he lives in New Jersey.
No, I'm talking about.
I know,
Yeah. Well, Pat would bring these songs, and I forgot which ones that were whatever, and he would play them. And Pat was just such a huge influence on me,
Right.
and you guys were such a huge influence on him.
That's right.
It's like this very strange full circle because Pat brought me into that whole world of like of like combining the music and the poetry, where I was always like, music, words really don't freaking matter as long as you can hum them and shit. Like, let's do a 3-minute pop song, whatever. But Pat, like, and through the influence of you and Mark Reisman, and growing up, because you guys are a little age difference. So it's just like this whole thing, and like here we are on a Wednesday night in freaking Albany. And, you know, this is like for 20-something years I've been playing these songs, and it opened up my whole head to a whole different stuff of, you know.
Mark and I were always fascinated by Tom Waits. We were fascinated by Dylan. We were fascinated by Joni Mitchell. And we always wanted to try and do that music word thing. But not necessarily, because neither Mark nor I could sing.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's just rap it if we have to.
Right.
And that's what we did. And I remember Pat when he was about as tall as because his grandfather used to own a bar.
Had a bar down there, yeah.
In Garrison, where we used to go all the time because you could buy a glass of beer for 25 cents.
Wow.
And he had one of the coolest jukeboxes, even though he had no idea what rock and roll was.
Was one of your songs Foxholes of Hollywood by any chance?
That's one of Mark's. Yeah, I remember
Yes.
that title.
That was the one that I couldn't sleep last night, so I watched an old Warner Brothers movie about the war,
Yes.
the big one,
Yeah, yeah,
WW2.
And
Wow.
that's is that the one that also has the cold rice and rat meat in it? Is that the one?
No, not that let's say, where big old roughed up Billy Bendix takes a bullet for a buddy. I just had to laugh. He probably died bleeding, bloated, emaciated. What is the
Billy
shooting
Bendix thing might be mine, but the bloated and emaciated is probably Mark's.
Why does he shoot him over some random mundane bug?
A super fan over here.
No, it was amazing.
I played these songs for 25 years, dude.
All right, so you gotta let me hear them. But one of the things I do want to say about Mark and I, Mark unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago in total oblivion, which is very sad. He was a groomsman of Emily and mine, and it just was very whatever. But what was really neat working with Mark, because we did things in tandem. We would make it a conversation. So I would read something, and then he'd try to piece together something that goes along with it. We'd go back and forth. And one of the first places that we ever read at was the old 8-step here in Albany.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I remember
Yes, tell me
that.
about that.
And that goes back to, I'm going to say late 80s sometime.
Yeah.
It has to be late
Early.
Yeah.
Early.
80s. It might have been early 80s
Yeah.
too. I don't know.
So was that your first venture up here to Albany to do things? So
Yep.
you've been, coming up here to Albany.
A long time.
So what's your,
I love the energy.
Those what?
I love the energy
See, we have energy.
Yeah.
what's your best memory
Yeah, baby.
being up?
of Albany. Honestly, I think it was the first psycho clusterfuck when we were upstairs in Valentine's, and it was Robert Milby, and we were doing Voices of the Valley, and I don't remember exactly all the things going on at the time, but nobody was listening to him. And he literally picked up a chair and threw it across the room, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. I think that
I think at the same time too, that was the third Word Fest.
Okay.
Because the first two Word Fest happened up at Thatcher Park. The third one, Rob Engelhardt decided to bring it down to Albany to have it indoors and everything. And he had this bright idea to have poets performing upstairs and an open mic happening downstairs. And I think that may have been what was going on too with Milby, is that there wasn't anyone upstairs anymore because everyone was running an open mic downstairs. And it was posthumously called the Psycho Clusterfuck because of that. Like there was so much going on. But yeah, that's like I said, that's when I first met you. Is upstairs there when we have those featured performers. But
and we also read at the, I remember vividly the 8-step, but we also read at, what was it, Queen? QE2,
Yeah.
again,
You read there too.
everything's going back to our conversations.
Well, that
earlier
was
tonight.
that was one of the things. I mean, when I joined Jim and Caps, I always, because I was always coming up here, I wanted to try and bring, like, obviously you guys have some kind of, you got the metropolitan energy. And I want
You?
High class.
Well, you
That
know,
is
it up here,
so.
I know it's boring to you
Yes.
guys. I know it's boring to you guys, but you got that metro energy, and we're still trying to get, and we're starting to get it now in cabs, and that's one of the reasons I've always come to. Because going to New York, I always found New York was either a collection of, it's different now, but when we first started going down to New York in the late 80s and early 90s, it was always, hi, I'm an angry white guy. I'm an angry lesbian. I'm an angry black guy. I'm an angry transgender. Everybody was just angry.
Yeah.
But now there's such a mixture down there now. I love it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fantastic. Never
Keep
had a
it.
question? Mary Penn.
Well, you half answered it, but I wanted to know, like, who are your biggest influences?
Honestly, I get more influence from the events of the day and from comedians like Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Robin Williams. Believe it or not, Gracie Allen. Gracie
Yep.
Allen has got a sense of timing that no one can beat. Carol Lombard was the same way. I just love those old comedians, and I try to, even though the humor is relatively dark, I try to make it that way.
So talking about old comedic influences, who now are you digging? Who now are you?
Bill Maher. Bill Maher and John.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Poetry-wise?
Poetry guys, poetry-wise, they're really rare names, but people
You
like
read someone else's poetry. so-
people like Guy Reed,
Yeah.
Mary Panza taught me how to curse in poetry. Dan taught me how to be political in poetry, so I owe that to him. I don't really get influence from the names of the people who have books. I get influence from the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Glenn's got several great pieces, and I'm like, damn, how can I do this? And so that I find more inspiration in the group, the community,
Absolutely.
than
I'm the same way.
outside.
Like I get more from being around people and listening to them.
Absolutely.
And like getting, bits and pieces from different folks. And that's, I've been a sponge for, 20 something years that I've been doing this.
You mean a sucker?
What's that?
Oh!
Man, this is the president you're talking
Yeah.
to. Be calm.
Trump, is his
But
name?
yeah, like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
taking all that in, like seeing how people use, like Mary swearing, damn politics, like, everyone, being able to have their own voice and the way that they do it, and that's always been like being a fan of what we do.
Yeah, I think some of the best poetry in the country comes between Albany and New York. And I just do. And it's just what it is.
Yeah, I'm selfish, I'm gonna have to agree with you.
I don't buy too many poetry books, and if I do, they're usually dead. So,
I know I said you gotta be really, really great or really dead.
Or both.
Anyone else in the audience? Questions, comments? Sally, you have something?
Yeah, I loved your reading. I really loved it. And I love that you come into the audience. I like that a lot.
I used to do that a lot more. I did it in San Francisco one time.
Dennis was training.
And, well, almost. I did it in San Francisco one time, and everybody's coming up at the end of the thing, and they're like, oh man, that was cool, that was great, blah, blah, blah. And this one guy is a little taller than I was, and he comes up to me and he goes, I really like what you did. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. And he goes, but you shouldn't be touching me. And I'm like,
Wow.
look, and all I did was this.
Oh.
And yeah,
Bastard.
but he goes to me, he goes, I apologize. I said, look, I'm sorry. I didn't, if I broached your space, I'm sorry. He goes, no, I just had shoulder surgery.
Oh.
I did one of these. Okay. And then there was another time I was reading somewhere in the city, I can't remember, some bar in the city, and I was going out into the audience doing what I do, and this one guy was heckling me from the bar because he was plastered. And I just kept literally yelling in his face. I was just like, and he's like, you can't do that. I said, shut up. You know, and I don't know who won the battle, but I didn't get punched out. So.
There you go.
So how long have you been writing? How long have you been writing?
I don't know, since I was about as tall, since I was about as tall as when I met Pat. So I used to write about my monster models because my mother always used to get me for a good grade, for a good report card. She'd get me a monster model, one of the old Aurora monster models, and she would get me a monster model or a superhero model or some nuts, and I'd always write a story about the model.
That's so cool.
And what were you, 8 or 10 or 13 or?
I don't know if I was ever 8 or 10. Yeah, I probably, yeah. I started in elementary, whenever you started getting report cards.
Okay, cool.
Well, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's packed room, 200 people in here. It's huge.
Now go out and tell your friends.
We're loud.
Very,
At least
very
we're
huge.
loud.
Very,
It
very
was
huge.
the most bigly crowd we've ever had.
Very big league.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming out. We're going to be here in, well, not here, but we're going to be having another Albany Poets present in April as part of, what's the name of it?
What's that festival?
We have
At
a
Word
week-
Fest or
A
something?
week-long
Fest?
Albany Word Fest.
Oh,
That's right.
no, not
coming
again.
Yeah, yes, you're going to have to get something going, Dan. You have to put pants on for a week.
Clean.
Yeah, please.
And bring your roommate with you.
So, we're going to be back, not here, because unfortunately we're not going to be here, but we're going to be at another spot. We'll be back here physically in June, but in April, for our Albany Poets Presents, we'll have the previously mentioned R.M. Engelhardt.
Oh! Break out the clothes.
Break out the clothes, break out the leather. We have a lot of things to talk about, but no. He's the guy that started the Albany Word Fest, so I figured, hell, we need to talk to him about it. So
Absolutely.
we'll be here, but yeah, that whole week is going to be kicking off on a Monday. Harvey here is going to be hosting the show on Monday because we really can't. We've gotten in trouble for doing poetry on religious holidays, so I think Easter Sunday
it's
would be a
Easter
bad day to start a
Oh,
poetry
fuck the
event.
Easter Bunny.
Oh,
Hey.
I'm with you, but
Not the
Are we
Easter
having
Bunny,
it- are we
Dan.
having it Easter Sunday or no?
no, we're
Can't-
going to start
I
on.
told you you can't
We're
touch
starting on
animals
Monday.
like that.
We have some great, huge, big announcements coming up. Stay tuned in the next two
important
days.
stuff.
2 days.
We'll have big announcements of what's going on. It's going to be an awesome week of poetry. We're bringing, we got some new stuff.
We're bringing sexy back.
We're bringing a lot of things back. It's going to be awesome. So stay
Yeah, I
tuned.
think
Make
it's
sure
great.
Sargent's
Hold on, everybody. Mike wants to make an announcement.
Christ's
I know it's
sake.
I got a flyer.
I know
Oh
it's
my
I
God,
know
I'll
it's-
be
I
at
know-
Chuckles.
I'll be at the Cheesecake Factory in Toronto.
I'm going to be doing a three-city tour.
Albany's
Troy,
connecting
Bonanza, Albany.
It's
and
a good Corning and Big
Troy. Green Island!
We're starting a new program with some of the best jazz players in the Hudson Valley. It's called Jazz Poetry. We got the Dutchess County Poet Laureate reading with us, and myself and Glenn and several others.
Who is the poet?
Yeah, who is the
laureate?
Dutchess County Poet Laureate? Just out of
Poet
curiosity.
Gold.
Who?
Oh, she's
Poet
great.
Gold. She's very good.
She's from Poughkeepsie.
She's from Poughkeepsey. February
You're
27th
stomping
at
place.
Quinn's. The music's going to be great. The words are going to be great. It's going to be something we're going to start doing on a hopefully permanent basis. So if you can catch a bus down, come on down. If not, I think we're going to try and stream it. So there we are.
It'll be on Albany Poets as soon as I can hear from you.
Where's your place in New Paltz?
69. Oh yeah, in Ellenville. We're going to
Ellenville?
Ellenville too. We're going to start a new program in Ellenville because Ellenville is a very impoverished town, and they have contacted us to try and, believe it or not, bring culture to Ellenville.
No.
Wow! You
Ellenville? Whoa.
So we're going to ask all all you guys to come down.
That's-
Really
that's
nice.
I'm not going
Sorry.
there, Phil.
I mean, the charge is parking ticket.
You want us to go?
No way, I'm going.
Wow, you guys are desperate.
Everybody gets charged a parking
And
ticket.
then there's a gig at Curious Joel.
But where are you
No,
in New Paltz?
New Paltz is 69 Main Street.
Oh, okay.
It's the Roost Studios.
Okay.
We're on the second floor. It's every first Friday. Come on down.
And there's no elevator, so you're not gonna
And
Yeah,
like,
but
when-
you're still young.
when you send your notice out, could you not just put the PDF on there? Because I'll tell you what,
Okay.
there are people who are visually impaired, and when they read, they're readers, they can't read the PDFs. They have to read a text in the email.
All right.
So just put
JPEG.
text in the email, and then whatever else you send, it's easier for them.
For the seniors.
For the scene.
That's-
Do it for the seniors.
Or us.
For the blinks.
We can
For the plates.
We're getting there.
Thank
All right,
you,
everybody, thank you so much for coming.
Yay!
We'll be here next couple